Hey everybody, I was like scooting in here at the last second and my eyes are watering, but it's all good. Happy Friday. How are you? It is a very good day here for me because I hit the midpoint and halfway point of the disappearance of Vanessa Shaw, which for updates, I finished the rough draft and now I've been going back through the entire book to work on edits of the book. And I made it close to the midpoint, did not like some of the way something was going, made a change and had to go back to the second part of the first half of the book. And now I have made it back to the midpoint and I'm so proud of it. I am so excited at how it's been. So we're going to talk a little bit of today of how I sort of regained some momentum in my own life, not only the mindset shifts and steps I took, but like what I actually did. So that'll be fun. Hopefully, I will be actually making my way through some coffee chat stuff today. I also put on my little witchy shirt today because I was like, okay, we're gonna just go ahead and embrace some witchiness here. So let me know in the comments if you already are looking forward to fall and have already started drinking pumpkin spice and wearing or decorating fall-ish type decor. It's such a fun and weird thing to have it be 103 degrees outside and super sunny. And also people are starting to talk about fall, but I think I love every season except for winter. Winter could just be gone, which is why I live where I live so that I don't have to put up with like snowy winters, which is like the opposite of Renee. But yes, Renee was already, I was jealous. Where are you? Renee was already drinking out of a Halloween mug today on our meeting. So that was fun. Oh, so good, so good. So this is another shirt that came, I believe, from Piper and Ivy. If you have not ever shopped for their stuff, they have so many like not witchy shirts, but like garden related shirts, but also bookish related shirts. And they just released it. They just released some new bookish sort of Halloween shirts, so I had to grab some for Spooktacular. I am already planning Spooktacular. Some things have already started coming in. I've already started thinking about how I'm going to direct or decorate the room and what events we're going to do. It's going to be really fun, but I also feel like I'm not 100% ready for fall because I'm still in the summer zone. So I'm like, I'm not into pumpkin spice, like hot latte drinks or something. Still just give me my like iced coffee and I'm happy with that. But I do love the decorations. And I was just talking um, to Renee about like, I want to put up a video on Sunday. And after two videos on Notion that are not really for everyone, because a lot of people just want paper planning and they're kind of detailed stuff. So it's not really something you can put on in the background. I wanted to put up a video this weekend that would maybe be something that's just more easy watching, if that makes sense. So I was thinking I could do a flip through of this camera keeps adjusting itself, but I was thinking I could do a flip through of my Kiki K planner. Oh no, I just got stuff on it. What is on my finger? Um, well, that will come off, I'm sure. It's probably makeup. Um, to just kind of show the planner that I've been in for a while, but I was thinking about going ahead and setting up my black planner that's Halloween just because then I could have 2 full months to really enjoy it instead of just 1. So, um, Maple says not something to put on in the background. I had on the Notion tutorial while I wrote a script today. It was like we were doing a study session. I love it. I love it. I love it. Yay, you made it. Have you tried the Starbucks that tastes like chocolate covered strawberries? I have not. I have not, but it sounds delicious. Is it actually called chocolate covered strawberry something? Is it like a new drink? I want to hear about it. So excited for Spooktacular. First time as a viewer. It's gonna be fun. I do feel, oh, Cecily says, I do like iced coffee no matter what the weather. I do too. I like it all the time. So HB90 kickoff is not Sunday. Just HB90 is opening on Sunday. Kickoff is in 2 weeks. So, thank you for mentioning though that, Salome. So this Sunday, we open up the doors to the HB90 boot camp. If you have been looking to join it, it's such a great time to join because it's the time to plan not only the busiest season of the year, but also to finish out the year strong so that you can gain that momentum. And that's something that we're really going to be talking about today. And I think I'm not saying I have figured things out for myself, but one thing is I am always on a mission to try to find the best way to motivate myself and maintain sustainability. And sustainable, like trying to find the right words here to explain it, but sustainable productivity, for lack of a better way of explaining it, can be really difficult. And this is not to say that everybody should plan to be productive every day of your life or that your productivity has to do with your worth in life. That's not what I'm saying. But I do feel like, depending on your personality, and I think we have a lot of similar personalities here in the chat, it is difficult and a struggle or a puzzle, so to speak, of of trying to figure out when you are a really goal-oriented person and you want to make really big things happen in your life, how to be sustainably productive without burning yourself out. How to, like, so often it's like there's such a huge, and we've talked about this a lot over the last couple of months, like there's such a huge gap, it feels like, from who we are now or where we are now to where we want to be. And sometimes when we're goal oriented achiever type people, it can feel very much like we want to very quickly, as fast as possible, bridge that gap so that we can be where we want to be and who we want to be and experiencing the things we want to be. And on top of that, there's that pressure always of, and I'm just speaking from my own experience, but I know that some of you feel this way too. There's that pressure always of, I'm going to run out of time. And so it's like understanding I need to slow down. I need to take care of myself. I need to make sure that I don't burn out, that I'm building something that's sustainable, something that allows me to make progress without, like, because nobody wants to be in this place where you make good progress and then you fall all the way back to where you were, which is where I have been many times in my life. It's like I get to here and then I freak out that maybe I don't deserve that. And so I sabotage and then I end up way back down here and I have to build myself way back up. And then the second I get back up, I sabotage again. And I'm not in that cycle as much anymore, thank goodness, but that was a cycle that I perpetuated in my life a lot. And so now I'm trying to create a cycle in my life where I rest when I need to rest. I am productive when it feels good to be productive. But at the same time, I am creating my own positive momentum and joy, allowing myself to feel joy as often as possible. And I think that is something that I came across. Uh, yeah, as Carolina says, sometimes I feel like I'm in that cycle. Uh, yeah, it can be a difficult cycle to be stuck in, right? And it's hard to know sometimes how to get out of it. Welcome, Freddie. I'm glad you're here. And KH is here. So I had to laugh when I was trying to read comments while I was also talking because, who said it? Scribbles and Spices. I might be shunned, but Duncan has a pretty good pumpkin spice as well. I love it. Uh, so yeah, it's a difficult cycle to be stuck in because sometimes we can feel really powerless and sometimes we can understand, like, or we don't understand why we're in it. And sometimes we don't even recognize it. So if you're recognizing that you're in that cycle, you're already a step probably ahead of where you used to be, because sometimes we can be stuck in that cycle for a long time and not even recognize that that's where we are. And that is a much more powerless feeling than, being able to move forward. But for me, there's like several different buckets of like things that I feel like I need to get better at. Hey, Angela made it home and is commenting. So yeah, so this is a big part of it. And I started a new routine with a nutritionist this week, and we were just talking about this week about the all or nothing of it feels sometimes like small progress is not progress that's fast enough. And so, impatiently, and as someone who wants to achieve big things, I want to go all in. But then, if I fail at it, and I'm just using the word fail because that is the way I feel, not because the way it's the way it actually is. But if I see or perceive that I am failing at it, then it's just like I'm back into depression and it's difficult to move on. But it's also true for me that small progress is very difficult to sustain because I don't feel momentum when it's very tiny changes. And this is like we've talked about before about my not, I don't want to use the word disdain, but my disagreement with the book Atomic Habits, because I don't think that it's not really something that resonates with me of like one tiny change at a time because it feels like, well, this isn't making any progress. And I think it it's a difficult thing to find that perfect balance between where you are seeing enough progress to feel that you're getting enough momentum fast enough to make it worthwhile to continue on. And this is 1000%, in my opinion, about getting to know yourself because what is what feels like momentum to me might feel way, way, way too fast and overwhelming for somebody else. And it might feel really, really slow to somebody else. And so it's really, this is the difficulty with talking about changing your life and going after your dreams, is because we're all different in terms of how much momentum and joy we can like sustain and hold on to, because it's going to be determined by our personalities, our strengths, our preferences, our trauma, our time available, where we are in our lives. Like there's so many things that can play a factor for it, and it can be very difficult to even find someone that's willing to talk about this with you, because there's always this one size fits all of like, well, the best way to start a diet, or the best way to start exercising, or the best way to write a book, or the best way to do this is always just tiny, small changes. And everybody says that like across the board. I feel like that advice is there all the time. And I just push back against it because for me, like if there are 5 areas in my life I know I need to improve, and I'm making one small, tiny, what feels insignificant change in one of those areas, I am not going to stick with it because it doesn't feel like enough. And I continue to say negative things, to feel negative things. And that may not at all be true for you. It's just the way it is for me. And so I think one of the most valuable things that we can do is figure out what is the formula for us as an individual, and take what we can from other people's advice, take what we can from other people's like books and life process and what they're doing and how they're doing it, and then tailor it specifically to match your life. Deb says, what about consistent changes versus small changes? And I think it kind of depends what you mean by that exactly, but my first thought about that is, yeah, I think consistent changes where it's sort of like, let me build this habit that feels achievable to me, but it feels like positive momentum, instead of such a small change that I'm never going to see a result from that unless I change. So Atomic Habits, what he talks about is 1% better every day. So you make one tiny change today, tomorrow you stack on that just a little bit, and you stack on that just a little bit. And I think obviously that is a brilliant thing that works for a lot of people. But for me, I have a hard time even wrapping my head around what 1% better tomorrow would look like. And I also know that I'm gonna hit days that I'm not capable of 1% better. And then I'm also gonna hit days where I'm capable of 10% and I wanna jump ahead. And so I think I like your idea about consistent changes, because that can be tailored to you. It doesn't have to be 1% small change. It can be, okay, I developed this habit, this routine that feels really good to me, and then I make another leap forward and another leap forward, and you continue to work at your own consistent pace, constantly working toward making yourself your best self. But here's the other part of the equation. There's multiple pieces, like a big calculus equation here. Another piece to this is often, and you can tell me in the comments, please, or put a fun emoji there if you feel this is true for you. Often, the pressure and the focus on trying to make myself better on a day-to-day basis means that I am literally sucking the joy out of my life. Like, no matter what I do, it's not enough to just sit and exist and be and have fun with my kids, because I always feel like there's these 5 areas where I'm not improving. Or there's thank you for those that say yes, because it's been me. And it's like I'm such a goal-oriented person that I want very badly to be the best I can, and I don't wanna run out of time, because it feels like there's always that, like, uh, ticking time clock of like, "Oh my gosh, how old am I? What is happening here? How much time has passed? How is my child about to turn 4? How do half the kids I graduated with in high school already have grandkids?" Like, I am always aware of that ticking clock. And so it's like sometimes I feel, because I put so much pressure on myself to always be improving, even 1% every day, right? Yeah, so exactly. If you have to be one better every day, 1%, then you're never good enough. And if you lose the sustainability piece of it, you just all those 1% that you stacked up just send you right back to the beginning, because you can't keep it up. So, this for me is the ultimate puzzle to living a good life. Is number 1, learning as much about myself as I can, so that I can figure out how to hack my own productivity. One of those things that has made such a big difference for me is my Kanban board, and I've talked about it, I've shown it a million times. Having my goals and the things I want to get done on the wall, where I see them every day, and I get to move them down when I get them done and get that little hit of dopamine every time I like move it down, has been life changing for me. So that's one thing, is like getting to know yourself. What motivates you, what feels fun, when you have been successful making changes in your life, what was the formula? Like, go back to your own, like, be the excavator of the truths of your past, so that you can go back and say, what has worked for me in the past, and how can I like accelerate that or make it better than it used to be? How can I really lean into that? Number 2, really working every day. I hate to use the word work, but focusing every day on telling myself in whatever way that I can that I am good, even if I never got 1% better for the rest of my days all combined. I am good enough just as I am in this moment, and I am worthy of all the joy and love and happiness. And even if my house never gets completely organized and I never finish another book, even if my next YouTube channel video gets 5 views, even if everything that I've built slowly degrades because I'm not getting better and better, I am still good enough exactly as I am. And I can pass the rest of however many days I get left on this earth in joy and happiness. And I am worthy of that fun and that joy, regardless of what I got done today. And that is a difficult thing for me to say out loud. But the minute I say it, I know it's true. And I know that I am perfectly worthy of a day sitting on the back porch, reading a book, and getting nothing else accomplished. I am okay with if I have a day where I've got bad cramps, or I've got a depression or anxiety is knocking at my door, that it is okay if I take a day where I sleep and I compare myself or I scroll on Instagram, I am okay. And I am still just as good of a person and just as worthy and deserving of everything, no matter if I just spent the whole day in bed. But also, I am good if I spend the whole day working and enjoy my work too, and to stop judging myself based on how much I got done. So that for me is a balance between wanting to achieve my goals, see things moving forward in my life, always trying to find the formula that works for me to get more done, but also getting off my own back and saying, "Okay, I'm allowed to enjoy this as much as I want and completely to the fullest, even if the video doesn't get done, even if I don't run the course again, even if this book takes another 2 years." Like, and don't worry, it's not going to. My shirt says there's a little witch in all of us, Natalie. Uh, oh, thank you, Taryn. So that, like, figuring out how to hack my own system. So that means for those of you who have a chronic illness or who have depression, or those of us who have anxiety, because this is one of my struggles, for those of you who uh, have ADHD or who are having symptoms of ADHD or distractibility or lack of focus because of perimenopause, which is one thing that might cause that because of whatever reason. For those of us that have kids, for those of us that don't have kids, like any of these scenarios, everyone has their own struggles. And there's no point at which it's like, my struggle is something that cannot be like we all have the power to take our personal struggles and try the best we can to find our joy and our happy balance of sustainability and building and creating a life we love. And then we also have the ability to move forward in our lives and have seasons where we don't have to push ourselves to be our best, but we just make our way through and we're worthy either way. And I think that that is a valuable thing to understand. Yolanda says it's hard to remember that we don't love other people for their achievements, but for how they make us feel and for their kindness. Why can't we look at ourselves that way? Exactly. And it's like, how many people do you know that are friends that you look at them and you're like, oh my gosh, here she is again, didn't get her laundry put away. Like, you never think that about anybody in your lives. Like, if I went over to my best friend's house and there were dirty dishes and laundry and her hair was all crazy, I wouldn't ever want her to apologize for that. I would just be like, "Hey, can I help?" Or let's sit down and watch a movie or whatever. But it's like, if I walk out and I see that to be true about myself, I immediately start saying in my mind, like, why can't you get your shit together? And I think that we have to start giving ourselves kindness and grace in those moments too. But Carolina says, unless you live with them. Well, that's a different situation potentially. With your partner, it might be slightly different in terms of your patience with how things are, but that's a different conversation. But I think that it's like finding that balance between push and just live, push and joy. Because we wanna be able to give ourselves momentum to move forward, and sometimes I think the way that we're taught to build momentum is to push ourselves as hard as possible. That's why there's so many of us that are all or nothing, accountability, numbers, metrics, like we're even just when someone says, "I'm looking forward to the Spooktacular," I was telling Renee earlier, I feel the pressure, not from any of you, but from myself to make this the best Spooktacular ever, which then makes me feel like I need to push myself to do more. And then I sit back and I think, no, why is everyone coming? Not to make it the best Spooktacular or to see me burn myself out, because for the past 2 years, I haven't been able to follow through on every single thing I wanted to do for the Spooktacular, either because it was too difficult. 2 years ago, I was also at Disney World every day. And last year, I ended up getting a stomach bug in the middle of it. And it's like, it doesn't have to be like the best spooktacular of all time. It just needs to be fun, right? And it's all going to be good. I'm new. What's spooktacular? So my very first book, Beautiful Demons, came out October 29th, 2010. So that makes this year's our 13th anniversary. So it is 13 days of Halloween celebration, celebrating and kind of celebrating my indie anniversary as an author. And it's just full of giveaways. I give away over $1,000 worth of stuff. I've already started stockpiling it. We try to raise money for Comfort Cases, which is so my first book features a foster girl going into yet another home for girls. And so I try to raise money for Comfort Cases. And that is a group that here in the United States. And there, I did leave some links last year, and I'll do that again this year for other countries because there are these types of organizations everywhere. But it's organizations that basically provide children going into foster care with like backpacks of supplies and things that they'll need when they go to their new home. So, uh, yeah, it's going to be super fun. And we're just gonna do lots of fun stuff, and we may build on it. I'm gonna need to take a look at, like, Netflix and Disney Plus and other things because I really would like to do another watch along, because that's always been a fun thing, like, getting onto a Netflix party or teleparty and watching a movie together as a group has always been really fun, so we need to find and pick out our movie this year. So, it's gonna be awesome, but it's like kind of giving myself a break of like, it doesn't have to be better than ever or, like bigger and bolder. It just needs to continue to be authentic and fun and it will be great. Right. And so anyway, this is just my kind of chat about yeah, and it's Preptober too. It's the most fun. The watch along was so much fun last year. Yes, last year we watched Hocus Pocus 2 and it was awesome. Hush is so good. If you guys have not seen Hush, that is good. That might be a difficult one to watch with a group though because uh it's scary and some people might not want so scary. But we can vote on them. Or we can do multiple. We'll see how it goes. I do wanna get to some of the questions today, but that was kind of the main thing I wanted to talk about is, like, number 1, resilience is, for me, the ability to not give up and keep coming back to what your goals are and who you are and how you work and, like, learning to accept and understand yourself, learning not to let what other people think of you or what you're afraid other people think of you get in the way of going after your dreams and your goals. It's being knocked down, even if you're knocking yourself down and continuing to build yourself up, right? And oh my gosh, I love this. Vanessa says, as long as it isn't like the parties in Peachville. I love it. You can't go to a party in Peachville without everything going wrong. One of my toxic thoughts is always, I should be able to XYZ. Like, I should be able to keep the house clean. Everyone else my age can do it. Truth is, they don't. They just clean up before guests come. And the truth is, there are some people who are effortless at keeping their house clean, just about like because they're just neat and tidy personality kind of people. Like George keeps his spaces super clean. They're not aesthetically pleasing in my eye, but they're clean and organized. Me, I like color. I like getting in the moment and like creating and having all my planners and all those things. And sometimes what that means is my desk and stuff gets messy and it's okay. um, so it's just learning to accept ourselves and then just picking out the ways that we want to improve for ourselves, not because we think we have to prove ourselves or because it's the way everyone else is or the way society tells us we need to be, but rather because this is who I want to be in the world. And I am going to do this for me and for my children and for the people around me or for my relationships or for my goals, whatever. Um, but also in the pursuit of those goals, remembering that we are also allowed to be joyful even in the middle of our mess or uh, our struggles, our trauma. other things like that. Even in the midst of our hustle, if you're in a hustle mode right now, we're still allowed to just sit back and be joyful about it. And in fact, the joy is what makes things so magnetic. It's like having fun with it is often what makes it appealing to other people. Like, if I'm sitting here pressuring myself to write this book and I'm hating every minute of it and I'm putting so much pressure on myself because it's not perfect, readers will feel that. And that has been a big part of the struggle for the last 2 years to get another dang book out, is like every time I sit down, I'm just feeling all the doubts and the worries that it's not going to be good enough. I'm struggling because there's this thing of like, the better you get as a writer, the less you're willing to tolerate from yourself, and you want to be better, but you haven't quite obtained those skills yet, or the ideas just haven't come yet. And so it's been that's where I've been. But it's also, when I talk about stamina, I'm talking about sustainability, like building up the muscles of like, how long will I actually allow myself to get better, for lack of a better word. It's not the best word, but how long will I allow myself to shine before I knock myself back down? And that's what I mean about stamina. How long can I go? Because I have noticed a pattern for myself the last couple of years, that I'll have one really good day followed by a depressing day, or a depressed day, or a high anxiety day. And then I'll pick myself back up. And then Wednesday, for example, will be a really high productive day and more joyful. And then Thursday, for some reason, I will just be right back to, I don't know why, but I don't feel good today. And I started to notice that pattern when I started tracking my habits, because I would have one day I checked them all off, the next day, nothing. The one day checking them all off, the next day, nothing. And I started to think, like, why do I not have the stamina to go 2 days in a row? And started to understand that it's not about the habits, it's about my mindset, and about the fact that I was pushing myself so hard to be perfect on those days that it was exhausting on day 2. Yeah, burnout, exactly. It's like right on the edges of that burnout of like, I can do it, and then I can't, and then I can do it, and then I can't. And that is what burnout looks like a lot of the time. Envy says, how do you find joy in spaces that aren't serving you, but through adult obligation, you have to be in that environment, like a corporate day job? You know, this is hard. I'm trying to think of an example in my own life, and if anybody has any suggestions here. I'm obviously lucky enough to have been able to work for myself for the past 13 years. But I did have to work as a teacher in an elementary school for many years, and that was difficult, especially because everyone around me complained all the time. You would think teachers would be happy because they love working with kids, but it is a hard job, and it gets really easy really fast to fall into the complaints because it's a difficult job. Um, so how do you find joy in spaces that aren't serving you, but you kind of have to be there? I think part of it is, as best as you can, your environment. s- I don't want to say zoning out, but like disconnecting as often as possible from the drama. Like, just don't get involved in the things that you can avoid. Try to fill your day where you can with things that are uplifting and positive, like listening to the podcast you love while you're also filling out those spreadsheets or doing those things. I don't know your job well enough to know what all you have to do or how much free time you might even be able to do, but also I I kind of think um I kind of this is just my personal belief, especially because I know what your ultimate goal is, Envy, and I would say figure out how to, like, using the word of hacking, figure out how to hack your future vision to where it's like, okay, this is where I'm going, and this is the next step, and this is the next step, and this is the next step. Like, you're building a ladder. Catherine Zenkina calls it the ladder of believability sometimes. So it's like, okay, here's where I want to go. I'm going to quit this job. I'm going to be making, however much you need to make a year to make this work. And then you say, okay, here's the first step on this ladder, right? And you put that on your desk, you put it in your planner, you put it, yeah, you script what you want, how you want the day to go. That you sit there every morning and you believe it. You say, instead of focusing on how hard this is or how much I don't like it, focus every day. Another thing, and I talk about this I think in the Manifest Your Best Year class, is a book of positive aspects. And this is another like Abraham Hicks thing. Start a journal that where every time you feel like you want to rage on something, like that person in the office next to mine always does this, whatever, whatever. And when you feel that urge, go to that journal and find something positive that you can spin that of like, even if the best you can do is, I am so excited that my books are starting to take off so that I can get out of this office where this person does these things. But also, if you can find anything that you like about that person, like, well, they may not be my favorite person, but I do love when they bring in snacks to the office on Fridays. And I always love the way that they smell, or they're really great at dressing. And I love the pretty plant they have on their desk. Like any of the tiniest things that you can find that is a positive aspect of that person or that situation, and trying to shift that energy and this is more of a woo woo kind of like law of attraction sort of thing. So if this is not your thing, feel free to just like forget this part, but just shifting that energy from this is so hard. Um, like you just said, like how people treat people, high profile job will get me at tables that I witness all the wrong things for my soul. Ah, that's so hard. My best friend is a lawyer, and she's a corporate lawyer, so I get it. And there are a lot of frustrating and bad things that happen in some of those corporate situations. So I mean, all I can say, and this sounds so flippant, but I don't mean it that way, is like start figuring out the fastest way you can get yourself out of that situation and see how much you can shift your energy daily, like morning journals, just like a very quick tarot card pull and a quick journal about here's how the day is going to go. Maybe even on the witchier side, doing some kind of protective ritual for yourself where you like surround yourself in the morning with a protective energetic bubble. One of the things that you can do is literally just sit down on the ground outside if you can, like actually in the grass, but it's okay in your house too, and sort of anchor yourself down into the ground. And then imagine, like if you lift your head up, that there is just a pure beam of light and joy coming down, like almost like it's coming into your like mouth. Sounds crazy. And let it just completely fill you up with light. And just take 5 minutes to imagine that just filling you up just like a glass. And then when it overflows out into a big bubble of light around you, like a glowing, it can be your favorite color, it can be golden, whatever you want it to be. It could be angels' wings surrounding you, just whatever visual works for you. And imagine that is just completely filling you up, and say to yourself, I am protected from anyone else's negative energy, and I'm going to have the most peaceful day I possibly can. Sometimes that kind of thing can be super helpful. And yes, having a ritual that you do from home where you cut the cords. Just even if it's like imaginary scissors and you light some kind of candle and you say, I release this energy, I cut this cord, and think of those specific things. And then maybe even EFT, if you've ever like done any of that sort of work where you say, like, even though this thought, this made me think that the world isn't good, I still deeply and completely love and accept myself. But like start a spiritual practice that is going to help protect you from that energy, and then start focusing on how you're getting out of there and what you can do to make it happen. Because I feel like and I think um, I think that you're meant for something different, and it's just time. All right, we're gonna answer some questions. So Claire says, would you consider writing any nonfiction books for authors? I would love it if you did. So this is potentially on the plan for 2024. The very first talk that I did uh, for Heart Breathings was at the RWA conference in Denver. Was that Denver? And I called it The Writer's Guide to Getting It All Done. And I feel like that would be such a great book title. And if I decide to do it, it will probably be a Kickstarter, similar to the ones that Becca Syme does, where there will be a writer's guide to getting it all done, maybe a potential for an HB90 printed planner with that. I've got lots of ideas in a notebook, and we will see. Another potential book, thank you for saying you would love a craft writing book from me. Another potential book I have thought about writing for authors, besides just kind of HB90 in a nutshell, would be how to write and sell a series, because I feel like there's a real gap in the market for how to craft a series in terms of character arc. Like, you've got people that talk about what is a series and like how do you market it or whatever, but there's not a lot out there about like how do you sustain a character arc and uh, continue to up level the stakes and all of that kind of thing. How do you put in breadcrumbs that are going to, like, plants and reveals that go across like 4 or 5 different books? So some of those kind of things I think would be really helpful. And even maybe even if I talk about writing a series, being able to collaborate with some other authors that could write for it as well, to talk about their types of series. But I have at this point written multiple types of series. And so I think with that experience, I would be able to talk about that. And then also how to write multiple points of view in a book, because especially a series, like, but in a book in general, because I feel like that's also a place where I don't know that I've ever seen a book about how to handle character arc and plot when you're writing multiple POV, other than romance. I don't think I've seen it when it comes to more than that. So yeah, the structure, it's necessary and it's needed, and I think so many of us are just figuring it out as we go, when there are really some good structural things that could help. So, yeah, awesome. Thank you guys for saying that. I love it. There's a lot of imposter syndrome that comes up for me when I think about writing a craft book, because I'm just like, I don't know as much as everyone else. But then I have to step back and be like, you have written 27 books, you can do this, right? So yeah, thank you for that. Ashton Renee says, okay, I may be in the wrong chat for this, but I've been following Sarah for years on YouTube and I want to read her books. I know everyone says to start with the Shadow Demon Saga, but what would your recommendation be for a different series? So I've already bought book 1 of Shadow Demons and want to get another. So what would you recommend? So I'd be curious to know what everyone says. If you want something totally different, then I would pick up The Trouble with Goodbye, which is the beginning of the Fairhope series, which is a contemporary romance series. And that book would stand alone by itself if you just wanted to stop there. But also, I mean, this is just my personal, like, belief, eternal sorrows. Okay, there's lots of a couple other of you feel the same way. Pick up Death's Awakening if you want to read something that has multiple points of view and is quite a roller coaster ride in terms of characters and other things. So Death's Awakening is basically a zombie portal fantasy. It's like, it's fantasy, it's witches, it's multiple POV characters that you will fall in love with and a few that you might love to hate, and it's great. And The Witch's Key, thank you for that too. There's more of that coming next year, so maybe wait until there's more of that one. All right. Halstead says, as I move into a season of life where I can't focus 100% of my time on just my goals, I was wondering how you balance and juggle all your different jobs as a mom, wife, author, business owner, etc. Your comment on intentional sacrifice in your reset video had me curious. So, okay. This is a tough question. If I'm kind of like, I think maybe you have taken HB90, but now I can't remember, Halstead, if you have. So if you haven't taken HB90, I highly recommend that you pick it up as a course. So we open on Sunday, not to just plug my own stuff, but truly that is exactly how I keep everything balanced as best I can. And I think that it's really truly, when we talk about balance and we've got all these different roles that we have to play in our lives, we have to sometimes understand that we're not going to have complete balance at all times. There's just going to be times where, your family or whoever your partner is or whatever else is going to take precedent, and you're going to need to spend more time on that. And there's a like, for me, I have not had a new release in 2 years, but man, I have really served my Heart Breathings community, and I have been here for these coffee chats. I have really served my family. We were homeless and living on the road for 8 months and, buying a home and getting a home settled and getting them into school and trying to settle, and it's like, I might not have been writing as much, but I absolutely have been serving my goals and my other roles as best I can. And s I had this realization of, like, I need to get off my own back when it comes to the books. Like, I know there's gonna be some people that are disappointed, but at the same time, like, I have to just be the best I can be in the moment I can be, and that means sometimes there's gonna be periods in our lives where this is my focus over here, and I've got these other things that are kinda just dwindling, right? And then you've also got the times where you gotta let everything go because you're burned out or you're sick, and that's not gonna be a time of balance. So I think balance sometimes is also just trying to it's kind of a question of identity at times of who am I trying to be in the world and what is really important to me. And one big thing I can recommend to you is try your best to start letting go of all the things that are expectations and dreams that other people put on your shoulders. Because yes, we may be a mom or we may be caretaker, or we might have things that we have obligations to, and we're going to have to see those through as best as possible. But there are also things that we think we want because other people have told us that's what we should want. But if we step back and say, you know what, like, let me give you an example. It seems like in some Facebook groups for authors, people share their income all the dang time, and they will be like, "Here's how I'm making $265,000 in the past 3 months." And they'll list out all these thousands of things they did and all the time they spent. And then you find out that, like, they spent 3 hours a night sleeping, and then the rest of the time was work, and they never saw their families, and they, whatever. I was having a conversation with some seven-figure authors. We're talking authors who make $1 million a year, like $1 million a year, right? That's a lot of freaking money. That's like 6 figures a month, okay, or more. And every single one of them that I was talking to in private was like, if I could go back and change it, I wouldn't do this again. Because the money, the notoriety for a lot of people, and this is not for everybody, isn't worth it. It's like a societally placed milestone that we feel like if we get there, it suddenly proves we're good enough. Let go of those things as often as you can. For me, it is a daily process of trying to let go of it. Of like, I don't need 100,000 subscribers on YouTube to be the best, whatever. It's like I can just show up and be and serve my community, and the numbers don't really matter. But it's like I have to constantly retrain myself. So finding that balance sometimes is first step, letting go of, oh, your granddaughter says hi. Hi. How old is she? Um, just trying to let go of the things that really aren't important anymore. And HB90, we do that. We go through that process. It's one of the very first things we do is like writing down all the things we think we should do, all the things we think we need to do, all the things we wish we could do, and just really sorting it out and saying, well, that's really not a priority anymore, or that's something I really don't want. So that you take some things off your plate. Then also understanding and realizing for yourself that you don't have to do it all at once. Like, okay, I built Heart Breathings up. I don't have to be a number one best-selling author while I'm also trying to serve this other community. It's okay for there to be different periods. And now I'm kind of shifting back. I'm going to continue to now hopefully find a good balance between Heart Breathings and Sarra Cannon. But it's like I had this big identity shift. And I think I was kind of talking about this last week is like, and this is something George was really pushing me to make a distinction on, like, am I a YouTuber who occasionally writes books, a YouTuber and course promoter who occasionally writes books, or am I an author who occasionally makes YouTube videos? But like, I cannot necessarily try to expect myself to be a number one author coach and a number one bestselling author at all times and be balanced, right? It's like just try to focus on what you feel is most important to you. And then, yeah, intentional sacrifice is a tough conversation because it's like how much think of your time like a budget, right? Like I have 24 hours in a day. And everybody will say, "Oh, you got the same 24 hours as Oprah." And I'm like, "No, not really, because Oprah has how many people working for her and, she's older, she's had more experience, and she's a billionaire or whatever." Like, these are not the same 24 hours. But it's like you've got your 24 hours. So get a really good snapshot of what your daily life looks like and what you can expect from yourself, and then start to understand, like, what is it that are my non-negotiables, and what are the things that I'm willing to say for this period in my life, I am willing to sacrifice this to get this, and sort of understanding what those sacrifices are, because just because we want to do 50 years worth of work in the next 5 doesn't mean we're capable of doing that. And so understanding, are you willing to sacrifice your health for a little while? Are you willing to sacrifice time with your kids? Are you willing to sacrifice um health is just such the biggest one. Are you willing to sacrifice your more expensive life in this big city to make your life more affordable? Yeah, it's exactly. Pick your battles. Pick your battles. Pick your sacrifices. Um and we don't all have the same energy. We don't have the same resources. We don't have the same amount of support. And so it's trying to get realistic about what your current situation actually is and then work within those parameters, which can be heartbreaking if you don't have the resources or the energy you wish you had. But I promise that once you really accept it instead of trying to push against it, it's going to get better, for lack of a better term. Okay, doop-de-doo says, "Just watched the Friday Coffee Chat August 4th, and one question pops into my mind. If we say we'll be happy once we reach this goal." So this is going back to the 6 months for life when I say, ask yourself this question, I'll be happy when, everything will come together when. If we ask ourselves that, then isn't that mindset sometimes backfiring on us because we are putting our happiness in the future and not in the present moment? And sometimes once we reach that moment, we're disappointed because true happiness comes from within and not from achieving external things. So, yes, to a degree, that is absolutely true and a very good point, that if we're always in this place of I'll be happy when, right? That is not a best place to be, because often we achieve those things and then it doesn't actually bring us joy. However, science shows that what does bring us joy is the journey. And so when we ask ourselves, like, I'll be so happy when, or I feel like my life would be so much better if. That is just a brainstorming technique. It's not really the mindset I want you to live in. It's just a brainstorming technique to uncover or excavate the things that are truly most important to you that you feel like will make you feel better. Because we focus on manifesting things into our lives, we focus on doing things, we focus on goals, not because when we get there, it's going to somehow make us worthy, but these are the things we focus on because we think that we will feel better or that those things will feel good once we get there. And so it's about orienting yourself towards the direction of what your joy is. But the joy doesn't actually come when you achieve that thing, because what happens is you achieve that thing and now you want the next thing. That's the way humans are created. And so the joy actually comes from working toward a goal that aligns with who you are and what your purpose is, and then finding and discovering that purpose and working toward it in the best way you can. And that is really where, you know, that's really where our greatest achievement and happiness comes from, is that journey, which sounds cheesy, but it's true. So yes, in the 6 months for life questionnaire, I don't want you to stay and live in that place of I'll be happy when. Instead, use that as a way to decide what you think will make your life feel good, and then start making your plan, not with the intention of believing that when you get there, your life will be perfect or that it's worth sacrificing your way to the top, but rather just as purely a brainstorming moment to say, what do I really want? Because believe it or not, a lot of people are scared to even admit or ask themselves what they want. So Question for Sarah, says Taryn. What's your recipe for granola? I can't remember which video you had it in, and I wanted to try it. So, crazy enough, someone asked me this in a video and I went to go find it and she took her website down and I am devastated because there are so many recipes there that I was trying to that I always use and reference. And George also uses a recipe from there, but because he is so much more organized than I am, he wrote it down. I did not. But I think I know it because I've made it so many times. But it's basically the granola that I make is basically like a cup of rolled oats. I think it's a quarter cup of peanut butter, but it might be usually I just go on ounces because 'cause I'm weighing stuff, so it's like I think it's 4 ounces or I don't know. I'm so bad at this. It's basically like a cup of oats and, like, 1 ounce of peanut butter and then 1 ounce mixed of pepitas, which is like salted pumpkin seeds and pecans. And you just put all that in a bowl and mix it together. I mix it together with my fingers and then spread it out on a pan, put it in the oven at 350 for 20 minutes. And then every 5 minutes, you just sort of stir it a little bit and it makes a crunchy granola that has no sugar in it. As long as you use peanut butter that doesn't have sugar, but it's really tasty and it's super healthy for you. And it has like high protein and uh, as long as you can have peanut butter. If you can't have peanut butter, try almond butter or something like that. But it's so good and it's so healthy. Up Cookie and Kate has amazing granola. I might have to check that out. I just feel like so many granola recipes have some kind of honey or sugar of like maple syrup or something else. So this is one if you are trying to stay away from sugar, it's sugar-free and it's so good. And you can just put it in like you can put it in a little bowl or something like that. And every morning you put a couple scoops on some Greek yogurt and with some strawberries, and you can just get unsweetened Greek yogurt and the strawberries and the crunchiness of the granola makes it a really high protein but low carb. Except I don't know if the strawberries are low carb, but it's really good. I don't really know a lot about carbs, but low sugar. Okay, Simulated Sarah says, you mentioned a couple months ago the possibility of raffling off your older laptop and tablet. Is this still a possibility? If so, could it be part of the Spooktacular? So yes, this will be part of the Spooktacular, and we are going to go with a raffle. So instead of making it an auction where you have to potentially like bid up above what you can afford, we're going to make it accessible to everyone, and it will be a raffle. So it will probably be like $1 or something a ticket. We'll kind of think through what the price will be, but it'll be something sub $5 and under for a ticket. And then whoever gets pulled randomly out of the hat at the end will win the laptop. It is a Chromebook. It's not a super fancy Chromebook, but I did write like 6 books on it and I will sign it with a special skin and stuff like that. So it'll be kind of fun and it'll still be inexpensive, but also your money will be a donation, and all of that donation from the raffle will go toward Comfort Cases donation. Okay. Kat says, I find myself expecting, this is going to be a hard one to answer in 3 minutes, but it does coincide with the stuff we were talking about. I find myself expecting more out of myself than I probably should. I'm trying a new thing, a writing semester from Kate Kavanaugh, and there's so much I have narrowed down to 6 main areas of my life. But my question is, how can you balance everything without burning yourself out? So it is tough, right? And I think here's how we'll end with this as a conversation. There's still going to be 3 things I didn't answer, but we got through a lot of questions. Here's what I decided to do, and something that worked for me, and this is what I'm talking about, hacking your own personality. I know that having stuff on the walls, like I have my plotting wall, I have Kanban boards, I have 2 of them in my house. Actually, I think I have 4 at this point. Having stuff on my walls helps me because it's front and center. It's right there. Plus, other people can see how it's going. And that is helpful for me too, that outer accountability. And so for me, sometimes the balance can be found in making small, but finding, figure out how to say this, figuring out for yourself what is a doable step in each of those 6 areas. But like it's doable because it's sustainable, but it's not so much that it's like finding the balance between it's not so much that you can't sustain it, but it's not so little that it doesn't feel like progress. And for me, that has been the key. I need something big enough that I'm going to start to see results. I am a number 3 Enneagram. I am futuristic strategic achiever for my strengths. For those of you that know that language, I need to see results quickly or I give up. I don't feel momentum. So for me, finding balance is about building momentum in a sustainable way. And that is like my current desire, like greatest desire in life is how can I create positive momentum? And I was talking to Rebecca, who is here. I think she was here earlier. Happy birthday, by the way, to Rebecca Sampson. She was on here just a minute ago. I was sending her a message and saying, like, what made me feel so empowered this past week is knowing that I have the power to build my own momentum. And so what I am always seeking right now is the right balance between how much is enough that it feels like progress and I can see results, but not too much that it's not sustainable. And so what I did personally is I picked 5 things that I felt like would make a big difference, but that are achievable for me right now. So my 5 things are working on Project Phoenix. It could be one single task. This is my Phoenix project is to rise from the ashes of my career. It's not really that dramatic. I'm still selling hundreds. Well, actually, I'm still selling thousands of books a month. So it's not really ashes. It's still going well, but it's not what it used to be. So I'm trying to build my career back up. So at least one task for Project Phoenix a day. I'm going to spend 2 days or 2 hours every day writing, 7 days a week. I'm not taking a break. And it can just be talking about my story, but it's work on my story every day. I'm going to exercise every day. Right now, I am getting on my iFit ProForm treadmill and I'm doing a 15 to 20-minute walk. Like yesterday, I did a walk in, where was that? It was somewhere like in New Zealand in a forest or something like that. It's really cool. iFit, you can find them on YouTube too, where there's like people that are hiking through places and you can, while you're on the treadmill, pretend you're hiking with them. So I'm doing one of those walks at least 5 days a week. I am now I'm like, what are the 5? I'm also putting in there fun stuff. So I have story time is something that's on that list because I need if I'm going to be a writer, I am going to have to continue to consume story because it's part of what fuels my creativity. And I have a hard time allowing myself to relax. So that has meant reading, gaming, or watching anime or other TV in some way that inspires me through story. And then is that all of them? How many did I say? Anyway, there's 5 things. And really meditation. So that's the next one is meditation, which I'm doing every morning right here with my tarot cards. So those 5 things, and some of them are super, super easy. One task in Project Phoenix, some of them take a little bit more because it's 2 full hours of writing. You don't have to go that big, but that's what I'm doing. Yay, there's our birthday girl. And it's also Michelle's birthday coming up tomorrow. So happy birthday, our fellow friends and Virgos, right? I'm Virgo rising, so I feel like I'm part of this group. Evie's birthday is next weekend, by the way. We won't talk about that. We'll talk about that Friday. But I know we're over time. But for me, that has been something that has helped me finding that balance between what's too much and what's just enough. So if you have 6 areas that you want to improve, don't expect progress every single day and don't expect big leaps. So choose maybe the one that is the most important on that list and figure out where's that place that feels really good. And then maybe one single task on the rest of them. And then once you get to a point where one feels like it's in a good place, you move to the next one and find a system that works for you for your personality. And that's the best we can do. Like work with ourselves and find like hacking our own system for lack of a better way of putting it. So, all right, we are yeah, Virgos unite. We are done and I feel like that hour just like completely just flew by like crazy. So, thank you so much for being here. I just love our Friday coffee chats. I'm having so much fun. I really enjoy being back cuz I missed you guys last month and next weekend we will have a little uh, maybe slideshow of Evie because it's her birthday weekend and it'll just be super fun. So happy birthday to everybody whose birthdays are coming up right now. And just remember if you have goals you want to work for, you're never running out of time. You're exactly where you're meant to be. And now is the best time to start on them in whatever way makes sense for you and your life, but that you are also allowed to just enjoy and take joy and pleasure and give yourself a pat on the back for even the one step that you've taken over the last year or whatever it is. And speaking of which, I'm going to go have some joy time, and Evie and I are going to, oh, there she is. That's what you mean. Speaking of which, hello. Are you almost the birthday girl?
Yeah.
How old are you going to be?
Tell all my friends that I'm going to be 4.
We're going to tell all your friends? Yeah. Tell them. Say I'm going to be 4.
I'm going to be 4, guys.
So many of the people here remember when you were just a tiny little baby when I was reading The Witch's Key. You were so tiny. You were just a little tiny baby. You just fit right here in the crook of my arm. And now look, you just fit all over my lap.
But my legs stick out.
And your legs stick out. That's right.
Wait, where'd you get that flamingo from? Where'd you get that flamingo?
Where'd I get this flamingo? I think from Honeybee Shop, I think.
Okay, show it to all the fans.
Okay. All right, you guys, that is it. She is such a big girl. Don't yell too much because there's a microphone here and you're going to hurt their ears. But you could say, how was school today?
How was school today?
No, I'm asking you. Did you have a good day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even I know one of my friends.
Yeah. Who?
Asher.
Mm-hmm. We're getting used to trying to remember all of the kids in our class because there's a lot of kids. So she's slowly telling us all the names. So.
Oh, look, someone's new in the.
Somebody commented a flamingo. Do you see that? You see that flamingo? And you got hearts. All right, we're gonna go. What are we gonna do? We're gonna go paint some unicorns.
But we don't have paint.
We do have paints. I just didn't put them out.
Oh.
You ready?
Yes.
Okay. Have a good weekend, everyone. I love you, and we will see you next weekend. All right. Bye for now.